Hello and welcome to Game Shack. This time around we thought we'd revisit a subject we've covered before, underrated games.
That's exactly right, Joe.
Of course it is.
In the last episode we did this, so we covered 4 total games. This time around we're going to take a look at 6 total games.
Yeah, and for those of you who suck at math, that's not 1, but 2 more games we're going to cover this episode. We give you more for your money here at Game Shack.
Well, let's get the ball rolling right away with Batman Returns for your Super Nintendo. Batman Returns on the SNES.
Actually, he didn't return. This is his first outing on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, he was on other systems and he went away for a bit, and when he did return, he returned on the SNES. Anyway, out of all the games made about superheroes, Batman games seem to always be better than the others. I'm not a fan of the movie this game was based upon, so I went into this game thinking it was going to suck. Well, it didn't suck and actually was pretty fun.
I kinda got bored with it, to be honest.
Well, you're a boring guy. Made by Konami, this is a typical side-scrolling beat-em-up.
And typical for the Super Nintendo, it's 1 player only.
That fits you perfect, Joe. You're a solitary type of guy. This game sports some good graphics and some really good controls. There's a nice selection of punches and throws you can use to defeat enemies. Speaking of enemies, there isn't a huge variety here. You have, for the most part of the game, the Thin Clown, the Fat Clown, the Bazooka Clown, and a few others, and that's pretty much it.
What about the clown on the bike?
Well, him too, but the music fits the game well and is filled with that ever-loving reverb the SNES is known for. There are 7 total levels in this game, and no, I'm not going to show them all to you because I don't want to spoil it for you.
It's actually because you can't get very far in the game.
That's not true. I can get far if I had enough time to play it, Joe. There's even a level where you get to drive the Batmobile. It's not super thrilling, so we won't even bother to show it either. Leave me alone. Overall, this is a fun title that you should check out if you have a SNES and like beat-em-ups.
You know, Dave, I think they should have taken the action scenes from that game and the driving scenes from the Sega CD game and combined them into one awesome Sega CD game.
Wait a minute, Joe. You know, that game is 3/4 action on the Super Nintendo, so we'll keep it on the Super Nintendo, right?
No, Sega CD game for sure. It's like half action, half driving. So it needs to be on a Sega CD. Anyway, let's switch gears from one action hero to another. Let's take a look at Jackie Chan's Action Kung Fu. Jackie Chan's Action Kung Fu was originally released on the NES in late 1990. As you can see, it's a great platformer which is completely worthy of being in anyone's NES collection.
That's right. I wonder why I don't have it.
But you know what? Screw that, because I want to talk about the TurboGrafx 16 version, which is better in every way. You take control of Jackie Chan as he attempts to rescue his sister Josephine, who has been kidnapped by the local evildoer. You run, jump, and kick your way through many colorful levels with perfect control.
Just like Jackie Chan in real life.
You can attack frogs for power-ups and collect orbs from fallen enemies, which will eventually give you an extra life. The graphics are very colorful in this game. They're a bit cartoony, and that's a-okay with me because it looks fantastic. Also fantastic is the music. The melodies are composed very well, and this music just wouldn't sound right played back on any other game system.
Yeah, you're right, Joe. It does have that turbo feel to it.
I've got to say that the music really is one of my favorite features in this game. The game itself is fairly challenging and it'll take you plenty of practice to make it all the way to the end. You only get 1 life and 5 continues. Now I've got to say that I'm not sure what this game has to do with Jackie Chan at all. The character doesn't really look like Jackie Chan. Is Josephine his sister in real life? To be honest, I had never even heard of Jackie Chan before seeing this game. When Rumble in the Bronx finally came out in US theaters, I finally learned that he was a real-life dude. The game never really got a whole lot of recognition, unfortunately. It should though, as it's a really fun game.
Well, Joe, that game is by far the best Jackie Chan simulator game ever.
Yeah, it really is just like being Jackie Chan, just, without all the broken bones. Anyway, what game do you have for us next?
Oh, my next game is starring that wascally wabbit that everybody loves.
Oh, yeah.
That little Irish bastard, Bucky OHare.
Let's check it out.
On the NES. Bucky OHare was first a comic book and then a video game.
That's a bit of trivia that I did not know.
I didn't know that either until 2 nights ago. Anyways, Bucky OHare was made by Konami, and it is a very nice little platformer that came out late in the life of the NES. In this game, you have to rescue each one of your friends from different planets. Once rescued, you can switch between Bucky and his friends and use their different abilities to help you get through each level. This game has quite a bit going for it.
Yeah, it does. I miss Konami from the old days.
The graphics are good looking with some bright colors.
I wonder what special cheater chip this game used to make the graphics so good.
I don't know, but it works though. The control is really good. You can shoot up, down, along with front and back, which is how all games of this type should be. The music is quite good and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it definitely is good. Why aren't there a ton of arranged albums with music from this game?
Well, Joe, my guess is that since it's a licensed property, Konami doesn't want to pay the royalties in order to release tons upon tons of CDs dedicated to this game.
Oh man.
Yeah, I know. It has a password system so you can come back and start playing roughly where you left off. It's a great all-around game that you should check out. You know, Joe, I was thinking that if more people would have bought Bucky OHare, they probably would have got a lot of sequels.
Yeah, probably would have. More people should have bought it. You know what other game never got a sequel?
Jerry Glanville's Pigskin Football never did.
That would have been awesome. Yes, absolutely outstanding, but it never got a sequel, but that's not what I'm talking about.
How about Star Fox?
No.
Well, what are you talking about?
I'm talking about Gun Valkyrie on the Xbox.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, let's take a look at Gun Valkyrie. Gun Valkyrie is one of the first games I purchased for the original Xbox. The game has some sort of story behind it, but I really don't care about that. You can choose between some chick or some dude, but I always choose the chick because I like looking at her ass as she runs around the game,
I know. I did the same thing.
Anyway, the game isn't overly complex or anything.
Except for the control scheme, that is.
Your missions can be anything from getting a special item which is located somewhere in the level to simply destroying all of the enemies. And there are a ton of enemies in each level, let me tell you. You can look at a map at any time to see what you've got to do, where you've got to go, or where the enemies are. The levels are anything but short and you'll get your money's worth with this game. You have many moves at your disposal like a double thrust jump, a side flip, and different weapons which you can select on the fly. You can also upgrade your abilities between stages, and that's a feature I always enjoy. The graphics are excellent for the time, and the alien worlds really look, well, alien. The music is excellent as well, and so is the sound. In fact, this is one of the first games I ever played in Dolby Digital surround sound.
Yeah, that's awesome. And this game had some really great ambient sound. I really like that.
The subwoofer really kicks in when you jump and thrust about. It's awesome. It's really not the same playing it here in wimpy-ass stereo. You've got to play it in discrete 5.1 surround sound. None of this Pro Logic nonsense. Once you get the hang of the controls and get powered up a bit, the game becomes really fun and addictive. It's a game that got overlooked as it was a fairly early game in the original Xbox lineup. Oh, polygon graphics are so awesome. Come on, show me an underrated game with polygon graphics, Dave, please.
All right, here's one of my favorites, Jumping Flash on the PS1.
Ooh.
Jumping Flash was an early game for the original PlayStation. Remember when I said that 3D games from the 32-bit generation didn't age well?
Yeah.
Well, this might be the king of that statement. Wow, is this game ugly. I mean, it does have really nice use of colors, but everything else is just, ugh. It's really amazing to me that after playing this game for an hour, I was really having a great time and enjoying myself. It just goes to show that great gameplay and design can make a game very enjoyable despite its graphical limitations.
Yeah, says the man who's always telling me how much better the Super Nintendo's graphics are than the Genesis's.
Dude, that's so in the history, just get over it. Anyways, the object of this game is to collect 4 jet pods and get to the exit of each level. The 3rd level of each world is the boss. The game is very simple, but still very entertaining as it forces you to make large jumps and figure out different ways to get to the jet pods. The control of this game is really well done and the music, while not great, fits the game perfectly.
I really like the first level music myself.
Yeah, it was good. I think what drew me to this game originally was the fact that it's a platformer set in a 3D world.
It was free-roaming 3D platform action before Super Mario 64 invented the genre.
These types of games were super rare back in 1995. Alright, Joe, I think we've had enough of polygons for this episode, you know. People's eyes are really obviously hurting like mine, so let's get back to 2D, alright?
Yeah, and I've got just the game to talk about. This game deserves a lot more love no matter what anyone says, in my opinion.
New Super Mario Brothers?
No, I'm talking about Knuckles Chaostix. Let's take a look. Knuckles Chaostix is an interesting game for the 32X. Most people hate it the first few times they play it, but people really need to give it more time to grow on them. The game is an offshoot of the Sonic games, and you are permanently tied to a second character with what feels like a rubber band as you play. This alone is usually what turns most people off.
Well, that plus the fact that you need a 32X to play it.
Knuckles Chaostix actually got its start as a real Sonic game where he was tied to Tails in the same way. The game was called Sonic Crackers and the similarities are clear enough though unpolished. But Sega dropped this fast for whatever reason, ditched Sonic, and moved the entire project over to 32X.
They probably dropped it because it was called Sonic Crackers.
This game obviously doesn't play like other Sonic games, and it's kind of refreshing. Once you get used to the controls, the game ends up being really fun. You can choose from several characters, each with their own special ability, as well as your partner who you'll be latched to. Each of the 3 buttons do a different thing, which is very unlike a Sonic-based game. The C button jumps, the B button holds your partner in place while you're free to run around and gain stretching motion, and the A button calls your partner back to your location. You can also pick up your partner and move him or her elsewhere. You use these abilities with your partner to help you get to new areas. And that's really the main goal of the game, as there are very few enemies scattered about compared to proper Sonic games. If you collect enough rings, you're taken to a bonus stage featuring a 3D polygonal tunnel. Your goal here is to collect as many blue spheres as possible in hopes of getting a Chaos Ring. There is also a different type of bonus stage which can be accessed mid-level, which features you falling straight down, bouncing off of objects in hopes of collecting special bonuses that can be used between the stages. You can play this game with 1 or 2 players. The graphics are really colorful, mainly thanks to the 32X which handles the sprites. The background graphics are all created by the Genesis itself. This is a great looking game. The music is outstanding, much better than any proper Sonic game by leaps and bounds in my opinion. They really went all out with this one. Give this game a try, but be patient with it.
That would mean I'd have to buy a 32X, and I'm sorry to say that's not gonna happen.
But if you do have a 32X, this is definitely an underrated gem for it. There you have it. So what was your favorite underrated game of this episode, Dave?
That's definitely going to be Jumping Flash.
Really?
I mean, yeah, it is. I had a really great time with that game. No apparent reason. It was just fun.
Okay,
How about you?
well, I've got to go with Knuckles Chaostix. I mean, it's the music. The music is really, really good in that game. Even Michael Jackson couldn't create something that is awesome as that game.
Oh, I agree with you 100% there.
Yeah.
So. Anyways, thanks for joining us, and we will see you next week. Well, Joe, what do you think about a show of overrated games?
Overrated? Come on, Dave. I told you we don't have enough time to cover every single game made by Nintendo.
Well, you know, it would be a lot shorter if we just covered the Sega Genesis as a whole.
Or better yet, we could cover Microsoft games made for the Xbox 360.
That's awesome. Let's do that one.
Yeah.